Right. No, I mean, this is, it's marvelous news, and
Right.
give them incredible relief. So we're hoping. Is that, can I grab one?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what day, June 20, oh, no, I get to here. Yeah.
She talked about it.
Yeah.
Where is she?
I don't know where she is this time around. Here's Mike. So put Sarah's in front of the phone there, or?
I don't know.
She is calling it, but I'm going to call.
Oh boy, that means his voice votes.
Well, we're at
Yeah. Well,
yeah. Yeah. And if necessary, I can give you a call.
Yeah, sure.
What's your cell?
321.
Andy is gone.
oh, he's gone.
He's on vacation.
Oh boy.
He's studying engineering. He is going to get, came out of there.
I turned my phone on.
I remember how stressed you were.
Yeah, right. Well, there's all kinds of things with stress. I want to give up shock therapy.
I remember that.
He's a smart kid, but, not. One of the things, he's like, he didn't work for me. He really was
Hopefully she's in a quiet spot this time.
really good. Yeah, sure is.
Pete, you going to be recording anything tonight?
Depends on you guys.
Okay.
Pick up SCPF during the enforcement action section, and I feel the need, and I will.
Okay. Well, just let us know what they're going to start.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm happy to know. I disentangled the leatherback turtle today.
Oh, you did?
I saved
All right.
some nature.
Very nice.
All right.
Chasing.
What, from your crab pot?
From a lobster pot up by Tuck one.
Sorry.
I grew up with a Coast Guard. I got to ride on a Coast Guard boat and everything.
Did you?
Where was it? Where was the
I
turtle?
was up by Tuck one,
Okay.
just by the buoy,
Well,
How big was it?
about 8 feet long.
Wow. It's got to be a little bit nerve-wracking to be messing with something that big.
That's why I'm chasing. About 8 feet, 7.5, 8 feet long.
They're huge.
This was a leatherback and the
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not a real turtle, are they? They're not actually directly related to the other turtles, I don't think.
Yeah, but it's not the one that's nasty. It's the one that used to carry on board, she couldn't carry on board because it would bite people. And the other ones, they would do it like flipping upside down or whatever. and they
Yeah,
eat them.
right.
Nasty enough that, pretty
And
simple.
according to Patrick O'Brien, they peel green.
Right.
I always wondered whether that was a true detail.
It's my third one I've gotten to do in my lifetime now.
Wow.
First one in a couple of years. It's exciting, you know.
I'll give Andy a couple more minutes.
I don't.
here.
Andy is away.
Oh, he's away.
He's
Okay.
away?
Sarah hasn't showed up yet, though, has she?
Oh, we got enough to get started.
Okay, well, okay. So let's come to order and begin the Nantucket Conservation Commission meeting for June 25th, 2014. A couple of announcements. Please turn off your cell phones and take any extraneous conversations out into the hall. We are going to be making a audio and visual recording of this meeting, and if anybody else is going to record any or part of this meeting, please let us know when that happens. Just a quick announcement. If you don't know, this is Commissioner Carberg's last meeting with us. She voluntarily is stepping down for family reasons. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank Jen for serving and to say how much we've appreciated her expertise on wetland vegetation, hydrology, and soils. And I think her calm demeanor and her well-reasoned and thoughtful opinions
Here, here.
have always been appreciated by everyone on the board. So we'll miss it.
They have their.
No one disagreed with that complete statement.
No, I know, it's unanimous consent, I'm sure.
Thank you.
It's been really a pleasure working with this, so I hope you,
It's been quite fun, actually. I'll be a little disappointed to not be here.
Always next year.
Always
Yeah,
next
there's
year.
always next year.
Absolutely.
you're going to want to spend time with that youngster, I'm sure.
For a little while, right?
Yeah. Oh, probably for her. That does get a little old, I know.
All right.
But, okay, onward. Okay, so we'll go to the public meeting, public comment. Anything from the public that is not going to be on the agenda tonight? Okay, seeing not, we'll go to the public hearing notices of intent. And the following are continued to various dates. Let's see. The SBPF Baxter Road area multiple, and that's the revetment project, is being continued to 7/23. And the land bank at 7 and 9 North Liberty and 8 Wesco Place. And the Lily Pond Realty Trust at 27, 29, and 31 North Liberty Street is continued to 7/9 as well. Is there anybody here to speak on those matters that can't come back?
We have one more too. The
Oh.
Town of Nantucket DPW at 188 Nantucket Road is also continued to the 9th of July.
Okay.
They just asked.
Okay. So with that, we'll go on to Le Bombard at 62 West Chester Street.
I know this is amazing. This was for the removal of some Japanese knotweed that we discussed quite some time ago. And we were just waiting for the stamp plan to come in. And amazingly enough, said stamp plan has arrived. So it was our typical, I know we discussed it a long time ago, our typical knotweed removal with the use of rodeo outside of the wetland area. We discussed it a couple of times before, so. It's been,
For a couple months.
or like 6. So,
So entirely outside of the wetland.
outside of the
within
wetland
all
area?
the buffers?
Yep. I think their discussion with me today is property's going to transfer to new owners, is if it's going to be worked inside the wetland. They don't really know how far and extensive it is because it's pretty dense, but they'll come in to either amend the permit or have a new permit for work inside the wetland. For right now, they just want to try to start tackling the incredibly dense stand of knotweed that kind of goes from the wetland up adjacent to the house.
Okay.
Okay. As long as it's all the standard protocols, and I guess we'll see the order of conditions and stuff. So is there any other questions or comments from the commission or the public on this? Seeing not, then Jeff, do we have everything we need to close the hearing?
Finally, yes.
Do I have a motion to close?
So moved.
Second.
Oh, I guess if Sarah's not on the phone, we still don't need to do.
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Okay, Steinberg, 18 East Tristram Avenue.
For this one, we were waiting from last time to hear from Natural Heritage. We have received our letter of no tape, no adverse effect.
Yes, this is an application to, David Haynes for the applicant, an application to relocate the existing paved roadway, which is currently located on the subject property without benefit of easement, and we talked about it last time. We're relocating the road from here out to here. We're putting in additional drainage structures because there's currently flooding in this area right here. We're trying to improve that. There's ponding in there from the roadway. So we're moving it out. It's outside of 50. The 100-foot buffer zone, it doesn't show up very well on that, is right along, right through.
Is there anything different here than what we saw at our last meeting?
No, there isn't.
No, except I wasn't at the last meeting, although I did listen, so if you could show me, that would be great.
Well, what would we do? Moving, this is the paved surface right now.
Yeah.
We'd like to move it inside the road right-of-way, which is here,
Yeah.
out to here, and then the wetland is over here, and there's another isolated wetland over here. We're moving it over here, and we're putting in drainage structures to take care of some of the drainage in here. All the work on the house is outside of the 100-foot buffer zone, but it is all a natural heritage area, and we sent it to Natural Heritage for their review.
Okay.
Yeah, here's the buffer zone right through here, and then there's another one right through here.
And we did get a letter from abutters, but it's, I don't know, it seemed to me that it was mostly things that were not in our purview. Yeah, Kevin.
Mr. Chairman, it was my letter,
Oh, okay.
and there's more to talk about that is within your purview,
Okay, great.
which I'd like to talk about. First, I represent the Borchow family, and they own property at next to this property. Also, the Coulon property, Emile Coulon at 7 North Swift Rock Road, and Jerome Johnston at 5 Daonis Beach Road. They're all butters that were notified about this notice of intent. I also represent Thomas and Connie Sigaran, who use this road for access. I'm going to talk about the so-called real estate issues in a minute. But first I want to talk about why this commission should deny this order of conditions. And the specific reason is that this notice of intent and this proposed project does not comply with the performance standards under the local wetlands bylaw. Specifically, the proposed new pavement is a structure. Your definition of structure in your local regulations defines a road as a structure. And this structure is proposed to be located closer than 75 feet to a rare species area, this particular inland wetland. And under section 3.05B2 of bylaw, the local bylaw, structures are to be located a minimum of 75 feet away from these resource areas. And the applicant proposes to locate a portion of this new pavement closer than 75 feet, thereby not complying with that standard. Moreover, there's no waiver that's justified from the 75-foot setback requirement. This road isn't grandfathered. There's no disturbance between the resource area and the work proposed. It's a new area or new land. Certainly, this new proposed pavement won't be more beneficial to the wetland than leaving it where it is. And lastly, there is a reasonable alternative that I'd like to speak to. The reasonable alternative is that my clients, all 4 couples, have a legal right to use this road where it is. They've been using it for more than 21 years for access. They have a prescriptive right to use it. They don't want to relocate it. And the better course for this commission in these circumstances, I submit, is to uphold the status quo. There's no encroachment on the Steinberg property. People have rights to use this particular pavement in its current location. By way of background, this subdivision was approved in 1988. The area was grubbed in 1993, and the road was laid in 1993, 21 years ago. And it's been used year-round on a continuous, uninterrupted basis by Sigarand, Horchow, Jerome Johnson, Coulon, and their predecessors Untitled. Moreover, there's a suggestion that the current Steinberg property itself and the house on it is exempt from MISA review because it's part of a subdivision. It's not part of a subdivision. It doesn't benefit from the exemption set forth in 310, I believe, CMR. Bear with me for a minute. I think it's 10, 14, 18 that exempts approved subdivision lots. It's important that this commission know that the Steinberg lot is shown on a plan that has not been approved by the planning board. It's what we call a no new lines plan. And I don't want to go into the tortured history of this lot, but the subdivision that was submitted with the application is not the Steinberg lot. It's a different lot. Steinberg doesn't get their title from the subdivider. They're outside the subdivision. They're not part of it. So, I submit that the house lot itself needs to be reviewed by MISA. The house project needs to be reviewed because it's entirely within a mapped species, rare species area. And that should also be part of what the commission asks the applicant to do. Now, in simple terms, what's better? Leaving things as they are, or moving the road closer to the wetland and the endangered species area? I submit to you it's the former. Leave things as they are. This owner doesn't need to relocate the road. It doesn't interfere with this owner's house. This owner bought the lot with the road there. She knew the road was there. And most importantly, she doesn't have the legal right to move it. So my argument is really twofold. One, most importantly for this commission, this project doesn't comply with your performance standards. Number two, no waiver is really available because there's no reasonable alternative better than leaving it as is. And lastly, MISA, Natural Heritage, should review the house lot because it's subject to their jurisdiction. It's not exempt. So I would ask you to deny the application, the order of conditions, leave things as they are. This town simply doesn't need disruption in this neighborhood. Pull up pavement, relocate it closer to a wetland just to accommodate this applicant's concern about aesthetics. Moreover, it's been used the way it is for more than 20 years, and it should be continued to use that way. And frankly, relocating the pavement as proposed would significantly destroy and disrupt Mr. Horchow's garden, his landscaping, and plants on his property. So this is one of those situations where, excuse me, sure.
Is that on his property or in what?
It's with, part of it's on his property, part of it's within the right-of-way, just as the applicant proposes to use a significant portion of the East Tristram's right-of-way for her garden. Others do too. But most importantly, this is one of those cases where it really does make sense to leave well enough alone. So I'd ask you to deny the order or issue a negative order, say no to this project, ask the applicant to submit the house lot for MISA review, and to send an amended letter to Natural Heritage that states clearly the house lot is not part of a subdivision and is not exempt from MISA review. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
I have a question for Jeff.
Sure.
This did go to Heritage, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Yes, it has, and we have received, just got it,
A no-take.
a no-take letter.
Okay,
Sorry, I got to
and,
back it up.
Is this wetland a vernal pool or potential vernal
No.
pool, or why would there be a 75-foot no disturb?
What is the particular rare species? Because it
Yeah.
says verified rare significant species. And
They have.
As I understand
I
it,
don't
that
think
the
we've verified it.
wetland is located in an estimated rare species habitat as mapped by MISA and Natural Heritage. And under the particular provision of the bylaw that I'm referring to, section 3.05 of the local bylaw, that a resource area that's shown on an estimated habitat map is, by definition, a resource area that maintains a 75-foot distance or setback from structures. And I have the bylaw here if you want to refer to it.
Well, if we did that, we'd be taking an awful lot of the island.
Yeah, I don't know your opinion, Jeff, but mine in the reading of this says verified rare significant species habitat, and I think that means
And
if something is actually mapped and shown to be there, then Heritage.
Are you- we're
I don't mean to be contrary, but it doesn't say verified for what I'm relying on. What I'm
Which are
relying
we reading
on
here? We're reading from the regulations?
is section 3.05A
Of the regulations?
of the regulations of the local Nantucket Wetlands Bylaw. And it says any wetland resource, any inland resource area defined, so on. And then what I'm referring to is, or any inland wetland resource area falling within any of the most recent and estimated habitat maps of the Massachusetts Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program shall be considered rare significant species and habitat. It doesn't say verified.
But
And I
the
think the
performance standard of 75 feet does say verified. As far as the structure allowance.
And Natural Heritage.
It says that what I'm
Heritage
referring
has
to,
signed off on it, Kevin, and that's our.
well, the problem I have with that is the letter that went to Natural Heritage was an error. There was erroneous statements in that letter. So they didn't have correct information. The letter said that the house lot was exempt from MISA review because it was part of a subdivision. It wasn't. I mean, at the very least, Natural Heritage should have an accurate letter to base its finding on. And
If I could-
I think
if
that
I could say
that
something.
the exemption that I'm talking about, and I grant you, Jennifer, it does say verified, but in these circumstances, even if the 75-foot requirement doesn't apply, it certainly makes sense to, if you have a choice between upholding the status quo and relocating this pavement closer to the wetland, it seems to me that's a pretty obvious choice. There's no need to relocate this road.
Well,
Could I,
yeah, go ahead.
please? There were two, in that letter that was erroneously written, I based it on the information that I was given.
I understand.
And there's two aspects to it, okay? One was the relocation of the road, which we asked for a full MISA review of that road. The roadway work was not part of the exemption. We were saying that the work on the construction of the house, we felt was an exemption because it was an infill lot. And I'm not a surveyor, I'm not a lawyer, so And we were saying it was an infill lot, so we thought it qualified, and the construction on this lot started prior to, the septic system was installed, I believe, in '96, prior to this site being mapped as within an estimated habitat. So if natural, and also the house and the work on the house is all out of jurisdiction, outside of the buffer zone. So there's two aspects of natural heritage. And one was to review the roadway, which they did as part of the Wetlands Protection Act, and came up with an opinion that it was a no-take. And they did not address specifically the exemption on the house in the letter. They weren't clear on that. But that house construction and the work under that is not under the Wetlands Protection Act, it's under MESA. Now, I understand Kevin on his letter, CC, Mr. Dale, excuse me.
You can call me Kevin. Could call it a lot worse.
We've been doing this a while. CC Natural Heritage, if we need to contact Natural Heritage and explain this, it looked to me like they gave us a letter of no take for the whole project, for everything. But definitely for the roadway, which is what we're talking about tonight and what's under your jurisdiction, that's the situation. Natural Heritage also issued a no take indicating that this would not impact any endangered species. So I would say that it has not been verified. It's been verified that it's not going to impact an endangered species.
Well, I just think two things. I think, unfortunately, I think that it's a little more tied together than two segments, either the house lot and the road. Because there's a portion of the pavement on the house lot that's going to be moved and torn up and taken off. So it's important that Natural Heritage looks at that and doesn't simply say, this portion of the pavement within the house lot is not subject to their jurisdiction because that lot's exempt as a subdivision lot when it's not. The other thing that I think it's important to clarify is whether or not there are verified endangered species in that bordering vegetated wetland. Because if there are, and I think Jennifer's exactly right, I think it does trigger 3.05, the Section 2, 75-foot requirement.
Well, Heritage should have that information.
Yeah, they would have records of anything that's been there as far as having been verified in the past
I'll
as
try to
rare significant species.
answer all of these things. I think when we look at this, the way we've done this previously is, one, the project that was submitted to Heritage is the same plan set and things that were in front, letters aside, and were reviewed. I think as far as the new construction goes and decreasing that setback to the wetland, construction of the new portion of road, they reviewed as having a no-take and not having an adverse effect under the WPA. I think when we look at that, as far as 75 feet from that, I think the important part for us is our jurisdictional area is reliant upon resource areas. And our jurisdictional resource area, in this case, is that bordering vegetated wetland that's there. I know we've dealt with this same wetland in 75 feet on other sites before. And one, we don't really know what verified habitat is. And we've kind of treated it before as coming from the resource area. So it's not from mapped estimated habitat, because there's plenty of mapped estimated habitat that doesn't fall within our jurisdiction as resource areas.
This is also priority habitat, which is upland.
So I think when we look at this, even if we do take that 75 feet to account, that's from the edge of the vegetated wetland, if it were to apply. I would say, in my opinion, if Heritage has signed off, we've always relied upon them to sign off for no impact and no adverse effect under the WPA. If there was a species of concern or something that they had in that area, they would have provided us that information.
They would have told us, yeah.
As far as the other issues and issues within the road and real estate issues and gardens within layouts and those things, those are all issues to be dealt with by planning and by the land court, if it's registered land. I mean, we're judging a project on its impact to a wetland resource area and its buffer zone. If neighbors don't like it or homeowners don't like it and it's a planning or zoning or those issues, they can be taken up there. I mean, we're looking at it as, will the project as proposed have an adverse effect on the resource area that's there.
Kevin is saying that, I may call you Kevin,
You certainly may.
that Natural Heritage's decision was based on faulty information, right? That's-
Well, I don't want to be too strong with faulty. I think all I'm suggesting,
Appreciate
and I respect David, I've known him a long time, and he's a very competent professional. The title history of this property is very convoluted. It's just very clear that this is not a subdivision lot that gets that exemption from MISA review. But I want to, if I may, refer back to what Jeff said. Just so I'm clear, you're suggesting that if there is verified species in the bordering vegetated wetland, there should in fact be a 75-foot setback to the structure from the edge of the wetland.
From the edge of the wetland.
Right.
Not from the mapped habitat, or else we'd have setbacks all
And
over.
I'm not suggesting that. What I'm suggesting is what's proposed is, by the applicant, is to construct a structure, the road, 65 feet from the edge of the bordering vegetated wetland, not 75 feet. There's a 10-foot critical differential here. And that's the reason that I'm concerned. The
Do we
road
have
is-
some verified rare species that have been
Well, I
identified?
think, I'm going to check that, and I'd ask the commission to also, but it seems to me that if the road's going to be relocated, it should be, if there is verified species, a minimum of 75 feet from the edge of the bordering wetland, not 65 feet. Because that's what the regulation says, unless there's a waiver.
Well, we've always relied on Heritage's records, because, I mean, if it's going to be a verified occurrence, then that means they've got a record of it, and I think if they would have had a record, they would have told us.
Well, no one asked them, and I think it might be helpful, given the gravity of this, to make the affirmative inquiry of Heritage as to whether or not there is any endangered species of animal or flora in this bordering vegetated wetland.
Would that be acceptable to you, David?
Well, I'm going to disagree slightly with Mr. Dale, and that
See, he doesn't call me Kevin. He disagrees.
Not when he's disagreeing.
I know better. Is the project that we're dealing with here for the road and the road relocation was submitted to Heritage for their review. They have come back with a letter of no take and no adverse effect to the Wetlands Protection Act. Whether the house and the house construction or the locus is still required to be filed with MISA is an issue for MISA. I mean, it's outside of our jurisdiction. I mean, if
And
we
it's
were
a
doing,
road layout, it's
I mean,
not
just
allowed in it.
as an exaggerated example, if we were doing work on the far eastern end of the locus here, it would be outside of our jurisdiction, but it still may be within map priority habitat and require their review. If it required their review, they would notify that it required their review. They've seen these same sets of plans that we have here. If they had questions or concerns, I've never known MISA to be shy in asking those questions or having those concerns.
Mr. Chairman, I'd suggest if we see if there's anybody else that has anything of wetland resource impact comments here, and otherwise, we probably spent enough time on this.
Can I make one more quick comment? In the MISA, or the Natural Heritage Response Letter, they talked about the project description being a single-family home and relocation of the proposed driveway. And for both of those activities, they will not result in a prohibited take. They did not bring up the exemption, so I think they didn't make a decision on whether it was exempt or not, but I think they felt that the house construction was a no-take. Just to clarify that, I think they did address both projects. And
Okay.
even if they didn't, the house is outside of outside of the buffer zone. It would be part of, it wouldn't be part of the wetlands issues, it would be part of the MISA issues.
Well, I think we've heard both sides of this now in our, anything else from the public or the commission on this project? If not, you ready to close? Jeff, do we have everything we need to close?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor? All right. Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thanks, everybody. Okay, so we go to more. on 2 Sandy Drive.
Good afternoon, Brian Madden from LEC Environmental, representing the applicants. The proposed project involves raise and rebuild of a single-family dwelling off 2 Sandy Drive. The property is located within flood zone A up to elevation 8. A small portion of the 100-foot buffer zone to an off-site bordering vegetated wetland encroaches onto the property, the southern portion of the property. The raise and rebuild, the new structure will be compliant with building code and elevated above the floodplain, the garage and the house will have flood vents. There's a very minimal amount of land regrading proposed around the perimeter of the structure, just to level things off a little bit for the foundation purposes. At most, in the northern portion of the site, it's being raised a foot. On the east or the west side, it's about a half foot. But you can see the existing structure in darker gray in the background and the new structure proposed.
And it's all outside the 50, correct?
Correct, yeah, the entire lot's outside of the 50.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? Okay, anything from the public on 2 Sandy Drive? Okay, you ready to close, Brian?
Yep.
Jeff, we have everything we need to close.
Yes, sir.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
That motion carries unanimously. Thanks. Okay, Bye LLC, 41 West Chester Street. We need to start including a pronunciation guide in our packet.
I had some coaching on it. I still can't get it right. So.
I will say really quickly on this one, Mr. Chairman, I think this is the one that, other one, I'll wait till. Say.
Brian Madden from LEC Environmental. The project involves new construction on, this is the southwesterly most lot as part of the formerly subdivided MSPCA property, formerly 11 Crooked Lane. The overall project site at that point in time had received a determination of applicability issued in December 2011. The wetland boundaries shown on that include an isolated vegetated wetland within the northern portion of the site and a BVW on the western portion. We had previously gone through an overall review process for the entire subdivision with Natural Heritage. I believe that determination letter was included within the package. Conservation restriction held by the Land Council exists on the majority of the parcel, and you can see that the actual development footprint, particularly on this lot, is pretty consolidated in that southeastern corner. The open space boundaries delineated, that's where the silt fence boundary would be located. And just a small portion of proposed work activities occurs within the buffer zone, outer 100-foot buffer zone, nothing within the 50-foot. And northern portion of the primary dwelling, and just a snippet of the pool and garage, and a little bit of regrading and landscaping. That kind of hits on the highlights. I'll turn over to questions.
Anything from the commission? Okay, anything from the public on By at 41 West Chester? Okay, you ready to close?
Yep.
Jeff, we have everything we need to close.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor?
I was just giving it up.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks. Goose Cove LLC at 7 South Cambridge Street.
Sorry for sticking them all in a row on it.
Getting a lot of exercise here. Brian Madden from LEC Environmental. Proposed project involves construction or installation of a new septic system, an IA system, a microfast system. That's actually partially located off-site. This property was formerly part of the proposed tennis facility project that was reviewed a number of years ago by the commission. There's an isolated vegetated wetland within the eastern portion of the site that abuts South Cambridge Street. There's an existing timber wall that kind of defines the IBW, and the and so the septic system is behind the house and actually partially located within easement on one of the subsequently subdivided lots as part of the Goose Cove subdivision. The system itself is 101 feet away from the wetland. There's that orange boundary is silk fence boundary that will be installed within the lawn. There's a septic tank that's outside of the 50-foot, and the only other remaining activity within jurisdiction is bringing in a water line within the existing shell driveway.
Okay, any questions?
But it's actually 100 feet, isn't it? Or am I misreading?
The leach field, it's 101, yeah. I think the actual field.
Yeah.
And it is upgrading the existing system that there's a tank and a pump chamber within the 100-foot old cesspool.
Okay, so this is definitely an improvement then.
Yeah, it's a microfast system with IA.
Can you inform me what that is, because I'm ignorant about it, microfast?
Yeah, it just provides some enhanced nitrogen removal. That's kind of the key component of it.
How does that work? I'm not trying to waste anybody's time, but
Yeah, basically. There's a lot more bells and whistles to it.
wow,
Layman's terms.
one more towers, yeah.
What's the reduction in nitrates percentage terms?
I don't know personally. I have to ask an engineer on that.
Anyone out there?
I'd say it's about half, a little bit better. 19 milligrams per liter is the standard that you have to meet. And I believe standard wastewater is between 45 and 54 milligrams per liter nitrogen. Again, it's off the top of my head, so I don't, but.
Everything's out there now, it's summertime.
Oh, thanks.
Wow. Nothing like pot calling the kettle black.
No, I mean, Art's got his summer dew on, you can tell it's summer. He's,
How? Jeez.
okay, I'm sorry, Art.
Tough crowd today. Felt like your last day.
It might be, I don't know. This could be my last
Well, I'm
chance.
talking about Jen's last day. We're going to watch Ernie and Art go down. All right, we're to the
Okay.
public part.
So, thanks, Art. Anything from the public? Okay. We still requiring monitoring reports on these performance, how these perform, or have we seen enough of those to be happy with that? I know there's been
We usually
some
just
time.
get the same report that they submit to the Board of Health
Okay,
here. It's nothing beyond there.
okay, great. Do we have everything we need to close, Jeff?
Yes.
You ready to close, Brian?
Yep.
Okay, do I have a motion to close the hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimous.
Thank you very much.
I will apologize in advance. I did have big intention to get a lot of these drafted up and things done, but I left my office at 10 this morning and was back from 3 until 3:15.
Yeah, but tell them why you weren't there.
Well, he told us
I need to
already.
entangle a turtle.
He's out there rescuing turtles. Important work. Okay, Nielsen at 21 Winoma Way.
Oh, this is the place we ran into trouble, right?
Let me see if they're in.
This is the place we go.
Oh, yeah. By the guest. Well, actually, she was nice. It was the renter.
This is the other one.
Get run out of the
Beat
front.
beat a hasty retreat, yeah.
Run out the-
We were a little bit.
Just an hour. You
guys are moving faster than
down the beach, but she couldn't get there because there's no steps.
I apologize. I thought the architectural drawings were submitted with the application, and they weren't. This is an application at 21 Winoma Way for the renovation of an existing house, construction of an addition, and installation of beach stairs. As you know, the house is on, I understand you did a site visit the other day. The resource area on the site is a coastal bank, not by policy, but basically by how the commission has been ruling. The toe of the coastal bank is above the 100-year flood elevation. It doesn't meet the policy, but the commission has been calling that feature a coastal bank, and we are also calling it. The toe of the bank is about 185 feet from the shoreline. So, and what we have is we are asking for a couple of waivers, or we're asking for a waiver for work placing structures within 50 feet of the coastal bank in here. There's an addition that's in here that's going in that can't be slid any closer to the road and outside of the 50 feet. That is because of the location of the septic system. It prohibits it from going this way. There's also a proposed deck that's replacing an existing deck that's probably about 20 feet from the top of the bank, and we're pulling everything outside of 25 feet. We're asking for a second floor deck mostly above what would be existing deck, and a stairway down to the basement that's also within 50. Most of the site, almost the entire site, is within the 100-foot buffer zone. It's a very constrained site. We are also asking for a beach stairs going down to the toe of the slope, outside through the shrub area. There is I have provided tonight, and I will make sure you get it electronically, a cross-section that shows the detail of this. The beach stairs will be a minimum of 18 inches above grade except for the very top and the very bottom, and we'll try to maintain it no higher than 36 inches, but that's a harder math problem to do sometimes. This is the existing grade, and the stairway will come down like this. All these distances will be a minimum of 18 inches above to allow vegetation to grow underneath it. I did contact Natural Heritage. The estimated habitat, and we're within 75 feet, but this is a water-dependent use, is right across the shrub line at the bottom and includes the entire dune field. In talking to Natural Heritage, I got the impression that the species of concern was the piping plover in there. I did talk to them at length about whether or not we should be filing, because we're not actually working within it, but when we get to the bottom of the stairs, people are going to take off and they're going to walk across that dune field to get to the beach. And Natural Heritage said to me, we don't regulate people walking across the dune. So they did not require us to do a filing with them. Also, right out here is the property line. It goes on to land bank property. We don't have the right to actually construct a path on it. There is a path that goes across like this and ties in with another path. We're hoping people will just use that rather than strike out across the boonies. But we're not asking for a path there. I can't say that people just walk across it. But natural heritage says we do not regulate people walking across things. So that is the beach stairs. We are currently the lawn area goes right up to the top of the bank, and we are proposing to plant a vegetated buffer that comes back at least to the 25, and then it tapers back in to meet the steps. But we are trying to improve put an improved vegetative buffer with, I can't remember what is that, beach plum, beak hazelnut, and huckleberry is what we were proposing in there. So we are asking for waivers for construction of structures, primarily the deck within 50 feet of the top of the bank. But we are removing a structure that's down to 20 feet from the top of the bank, and we are planning a vegetative buffer in there to offset impacts. So we're asking for an overall, the waiver is an overall net benefit. And this is most of that structure is just a deck up on posts and will be pervious underneath.
Okay. Any questions? Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, just on the, I'm just looking up the definition here, on the description of the bank
Yeah.
as being a bank that's not a bank, but a bank not by policy, but by practice.
Right.
I'm not entirely clear on what's being represented here to us. Could we?
I respect the commission's, I mean, the DEP about 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago on Codfish Park came out with a determination that the bluff in Codfish Park was what has been and will be again a coastal bank, but it's not currently a coastal bank, but they called it a coastal bank. And
It's a feature that's not a coastal bank that they're labeling a coastal bank.
Yeah. They
Well,
did.
it's a historic coastal bank, right?
Yeah,
And this one, maybe 1875, or when it stopped eroding there and built out.
It was once and it will be again.
Yeah,
And so, from a practical point of view, we called it, and the commission has been calling this feature, this topographic feature, a coastal bank, and I respect that, and that's what I'm.
Also, the DEP policy otherwise functions how? It's the first break and slope.
Right, it's where you have a slope that's steeper than 4 to 1, or steeper than 10 to 1, that intersects the 100-year flood elevation. The 100-year flood elevation is out at elevation 9, probably, what's the scale on this, I'm sorry.
That doesn't come into play here. Is that what, that's what we're saying?
It's outside, but.
So this commission has a practice or a habit of.
The interesting thing about it is, even since that DEP determination on Codfish Park, and I think some of you may have been on the commission when we addressed it, is the Frost decision out on Eel Point has altered that since. And we remember when we just last looked at for Codfish Park, that was not a coastal bank because it didn't contact an additional coastal resource area, like our definition reads.
What makes it a coastal bank is my question.
It once was and it will be again.
Well,
It has.
my question was, I wasn't sure, and then this is, I apologize for not having as much time as I'd like to have gone over this in advance, but where the bottom of the bank contacts the bottom of the slope, that area that's formed in front of that area is part of what this commission would probably consider to be a coastal dune field. And by contacting that coastal resource area, in that case, turns this section into more of a coastal bank, because it directly contacts another coastal resource area, if that makes
It's not
sense
just
to
land
people.
subject.
And where do we have that? Is that in the definition of bank?
Yeah, I'll grab that out.
'Cause I'm reading it here and I'm just trying to.
Well, I mean, is this going to impact our decision? I mean, it seems like, if the applicant is willing to let us.
Well, this is how our bank for coastal bank reads. It's the seaward face or side of any elevated landform other than coastal dune, which lies at the landward edge of coastal beach, coastal dune, land subject to tidal action or coastal storm flowage, or other coastal wetland. Any minor discontinuity of the slope notwithstanding the top of the bank shall be the first significant break in slope as defined by site-specific topographic plan information, site inspection, wetland habitat evaluation, geologic origin, and a relationship to land subject to coastal storm flowage. And then it talks about characteristics of the bank.
So in other words, if this were all beach, and it were like a 6-mile wide beach on the bank, this definition makes that a coastal bank because it's contacting.
Yes, sir.
a beach.
And in this case, it's contacting a coastal dune field for us.
I'll have to go to that definition, but that's
It's-
helpful.
it's-
Thank you, Mike.
It's within coastal dune, and with that, it is contacting that. I mean, I'm not trying to make it, I just was pointing out by policy.
Yeah, our coastal dune field definition is literally boiled down to an assembly of continuous coastal dunes.
And everything from the toe of this slope, this once was a coastal bank.
I don't find
And
Doomfield.
functioned as a coastal bank with a coastal beach at the bottom. It has accreted, the beach accreted, the shoreline accreted, a coastal dune built up on top of it, even though, and so there is a coastal dune field by your definition at the toe of this slope.
So not to belabor the point, but to fully understand it, when I'm looking through our definitions, we go determination of applicability, dredge, dune, elevated walkway, engineering structure. Is dune field some other place?
It's under coastal dune field with coastal dune.
Coastal dune field,
Yeah.
under coastal
It's one of those
dune.
great,
I mean,
Here it is. Thank you.
excellent definition. Snags. So this is one just as a different example. When you get down into the Brant Point area, where the old historic coastal bank kind of runs for Cliff Road, there are portions where that bank isn't really a coastal bank because it doesn't contact another coastal resource area in some spots.
if you want to.
Codfish Park was the same.
Well, I get it.
Codfish Park was the same.
What I'm really thinking of is,
It's just because of development.
what I'm really thinking of is when we denied the hot tub to somebody there on, behind Marine Lumber Company because it was in some proximity to the top of a
Well, that
coastal bank.
that coastal bank was a coastal bank because it directly abutted both the flood zone and the salt marsh
There you go.
at the toe of that slope.
Yeah.
What was the Frost decision that you mentioned?
The Frost decision was a decision that really brought to light the necessity of resource areas to kind of coexist together. It's probably better to read it to get it. I can get you a copy of that for sure.
It was a coastal, it was a dune on top of the bank,
coastal bank.
and back of the bank, very out in, on Eel Point. And it was a bunch of, geologically, they are dunes. And the source of the sand probably was the beach and probably was historical. But it wasn't functioning as a classic coastal dune. And it was, the Frost decision from DEP came down and said that dune field on the top of the bank wasn't a coastal dune, except for one small portion that was actually touching the top of the bank.
Yes.
I gave that project up a long time.
And amazingly, shortly thereafter, that's when coastal dune field landed in our definitions.
Yeah. And it was because of that decision. But in terms of the function of this coastal bank, it does have wildlife value. The vegetation does maintain its stability for wind erosion and things like that. It isn't a source of sediment for the ocean currently. It's got 135 or 100, I forget what the number is, feet before it erodes in there, before it does become a source.
You never know.
Things change quickly. The beach stairs is a water-dependent use, so it is an allowed activity across the resource area. But we are within 50. We are doing work within 25 and planning the vegetative buffer. So, but we can't plan a vegetative buffer within 25 without working within 25. So, and that's an overall net benefit. So we feel like we've qualified there, and that bigger buffer does improve things We are moving our structures back from the top of the bank slightly, and asking to replace a deck. This plan is better. Replace a deck with another deck farther back. And the addition is where the addition is because we can't slide it any farther back. And then there's work on the house, which is already within 50, that we're asking to do the renovation of, which there are plans here that do show the roof line. It's basically, we're keeping the same peak. It's a salt box now, and it's going to a cape with a dormer out the front. So it's keeping the same roof line. Now that I've thoroughly confused you.
Any questions from the commission? Any further questions? Anything from the public on, which one are we on? Nielsen?
Nielsen.
On the way. Okay. Is there anything we would like David to reconsider or anything like that? Give him fair warning on anything. Okay, ready to close, David?
It's up to you.
Jeff, do we have everything we need to close the hearing?
Perfectly willing to give you anything else you want.
Do I have a motion to close?
Sure.
Is that
Move to close.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Yeah.
I'll take that as a motion and a second.
It's unnecessary second, yes.
I was going to say that.
All in favor?
Don't start down that bad.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Okay, and Nathan, at 84 Pocomo Road.
Gasparo, Blackwell Associates for the applicant. I'm before you tonight with a notice of intent application for work in a coastal bank resource area. There is an existing set of beach stairs on this coastal bank, which has started to slump and fail. There are also some terracing and planting materials that are shown in the box surrounding the stairs. The owner has tried over the years to sort of stabilize the area around the stairs so that the slumping that's sort of happened would be delayed or not happen. Ultimately, that has not been successful. He was hopeful that there may be a way to try to keep some of those materials. I explained to him that I didn't think that that was in harmony with the regulations and was rather unlikely to be approved. So we're before you tonight with an application which is to replace the existing beach stairs and to remove all of the timber terracing materials that are in that portion of the coastal bank. The work will be done by hand. I anticipate that they would bring a pickup truck down the beach from Pocomo Point to put the debris in, and that we wouldn't be using any machinery. They'd have hand dug post holes to support the beach stairs, no different than any other of the beach stairs that you see. I haven't shown an exact design for the stairs because I think that that's going to have to be worked out in the field once the other materials have been removed. So the way I've proposed it is that it would be a replacement of the same width and length, but I don't know exactly where there would be landings and every post would go. And I would hope that the commission would condition the project that, such that as long as you receive the as-built that shows the stairs in generally the same position, this area of the bank is disturbed. Once the terraces are removed, the area, I'm not proposing to bring any fill in, would just be raked clean. Whatever plantings that are there that could be salvaged could stay. I expect that much of them would in fact be disturbed,
and may not be likely to survive. I'm not proposing to try to establish additional plantings. I think that the bank is simply too steep in that area without some kind of additional support. So the long and short of that is just that it would be to remove all of the slumped materials and then to replace the stairs and provide you with an as-built and some photos that show just the stairs in place. And that's the extent of the project that's proposed.
Any questions?
Has anyone, Art, ever built beach stairs where you did sort of like some kind of auger that went in that then supported the stairs? It's like something you think of because you think, oh man, digging that thing out and you know it's going to slump again. And
Right. I think it's a sort of the same thing is likely to happen with those auger, and then you're into having metal supports as opposed to timber supports. I do think that there may be instances where that would be a good solution, especially in a place where maybe you, sort of like we were just discussing, where you actually have a dune field or some where you have a stable vegetated bank that's not subject to active erosion.
Yeah, this is very different.
But this is and now the erosion rate here, of course, in the harbor is quite low, and these have been there for some period of time. I included in 1971 aerial photograph with the application that showed, it's a little grainy, but there was clearly some sort of beach access there. I'm not saying that these are the same stairs that were there from 1971. I'm just trying to demonstrate that there was the same sort of use. I'm not trying to ask for any grandfathering provision. I am not asking for a waiver simply on the basis that the stairs themselves are a water-dependent use, no different than the past practice of the Commission. And I think that the most realistic, the thing about putting those augers in is then you need one of those machines with two guys to run it. Right. You're on a slope versus just dig a hole and plant the post and build the stairs. Seems to kind of be the tried and true method. And for how long it will last is, dependent sort of on how harsh the storm seasons are.
Any other questions? Anything from the public? Okay, Art, you ready to close?
I believe if you don't need any additional information, we are.
Jeff, we have everything we need to close the hearing. Do I have a motion to close? I guess Mike made the motion to close. Fine.
I did, Mr. Chairman.
Let's be verbal over the table and look it up.
We have the
Ian seconds.
Ian seconds. Okay.
I got that.
Oh my God.
Or is declaring peace, one of the two.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, 7 doors at 13 Lincoln Ave.
Once again, Art Gasparo, Blackwell Associates for the applicant. I'm before you for a project. This is a buffer zone only project. Within the buffer zone to a coastal bank. This is the coastal bank, which is on the, if you would, the south or landward side of Jefferson Ave. So this is stable, vegetated, not subject to any wave action. I forget the exact distance, but I think it's 800 feet or more to the actual shoreline down at, say, Jetty's Beach or Cliffside, in between there, from the base of this bank to the shore. The project that we're proposing is essentially there's an existing structure shown on the plan. In blue is the top of the coastal bank. The coastal bank is based on the DEP policy for the intersection of the flood zone with the slope, and based upon the change in slope from 4:1 to 10:1 is how we've determined that the top of this bank. And the project there is for the existing structure
to be lifted and for us to install a new foundation underneath that structure. We're also proposing to extend the foundation underneath the porch that's there right now. And there is a landscape retaining wall that exists, and so we would propose to raise that wall the same, approximately 1.5 feet, 18 inches. Everything is coming up in that area. The limit of work would be delineated by a silt fence, which is shown at the top of the coastal bank. And it is a waiver project. We've requested the waiver for the work on the basis of no reasonable alternative, no adverse impact. And with that, I'd be happy to, the work would be done from the upland side so that we don't have any disturbance of the actual resource area. We are proposing, in terms of additional structure, only to add a couple of steps as would be needed to access the structure at the higher location. So 2 or 3 stairs, essentially, probably just two risers to accommodate the additional 18 inches that structure would be coming up. And we have run through the performance standards in the waiver request, should you have any additional questions or concerns.
Any questions?
So you're putting a foundation under this porch that is almost up towards the bank? That's the portion of the porch?
That's right.
Okay. And there's nothing under it now? It's just a freestanding porch?
It's pier supported, and it's got walls that kind of go around it because it's already sort of high.
Mm-hmm.
So what this will do is, otherwise we would have some kind of a taller pier system or something. So we're doing a foundation for the whole thing anyway, so we can just make it all one.
Is this a basement, or is it just a wall?
It would be just incorporated into the basement.
Okay.
We don't have to dig down very far because it's already sticking up out of the ground. So the limited disturbance would only be going down a couple of feet, even 2-3 feet, I think.
Okay, so you're not sinking a full basement into that top of the bluff, basically?
It would be, but it's already just the extension of what's there, because when you go there right now, as you walk around the front of that structure, the porch is like up here.
It's already up there.
Right.
It's like 6.5
Right.
feet high.
So otherwise, we'd have some
Okay.
kind of a pier system. So it's the easiest way, really, is to just pour one foundation wall around it. The question is, we have this thing up in the air, cribbed up, and then have to build a foundation. How would I otherwise do that?
Mm-hmm.
And from a structural point of view, that's what clearly makes the most sense. Initially, I was looking at it, well, what is that going to cause a limited disturbance into the bank? And I realized, actually, no, you're only going down to 2 or maybe even 3 feet.
Okay.
So I think it'll work.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Anything from the public on 7 Doors? Okay. Jeff, do we have everything we need to close the hearing?
Yes.
Are you ready to close?
We are.
Do I have a motion to close?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, Duke 53 LLC, 53 Dukes Road.
Definitely. Brian Madden from LEC Environmental. Proposed project involves the construction of a pool and patio within the outer 100-foot buffer zone to border vegetated wetlands off-site. No work is within 50 feet. There will be a perimeter pool fence outside of the 50-foot that I've highlighted in pink on this plan. And there will be regrading activities between the 50 to 100-foot and some landscaping along that slope as shaded in. And, basically that summarizes the main facets of the project. The patio is going to be a fieldstone dry laid patio. I'll just turn over to questions at this point.
Any questions?
One other thing I failed to mention, there is a little concrete slab outside of the 50-foot buffer zone that's going to, there's going to be some pool equipment situated on that.
Anything from the public on 53 Dukes Road? Quiet public tonight. Okay, well, if there's nothing from anybody, ready to close, Brian? Jeff, we have everything we need to close.
Yes.
Do I have a motion to close?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Okay, amended orders. 62 Wall Street Trust at 62 Wall Street.
Yeah, I'll take another one. Thank you. For the record, Paul Santos, Nantucket Surveyors, representing the Trust, 62 Wall Street Trust. This is an amended order for work within land subject to coastal storm flowage on Wall Street in the Brant Point area. The resource area is strictly the land subject to coastal storm flowage. We did receive an order of conditions for the construction of a single-family dwelling in March of this past year, March of 2014. We're before you to amend the order to construct a secondary dwelling on the southern side of the lot. The dwelling will be constructed in accordance with the planning board's regulations with regard to setbacks to the primary dwelling, and both the secondary and primary dwelling have been elevated in accordance with the recently adopted new flood zone mapping. Be happy to answer any questions you may have, but that's the extent of the work, is the addition of a secondary dwelling on the lot.
Any questions? Anything from the public? Okay. Well, let's see. We need to close the hearing on this?
You can close an issue if you want.
Okay, do we have a motion to close the hearing and issue this as an amended order?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to the public meeting, request for determination.
All right. I noticed this in the packet a minute ago. I apologize for it not coming through because the plan was just done on an aerial photograph and on a terrible sketch. And the applicant apologized for not being able to make it. So.
This is Young, 13 North Liberty Street.
Correct. So, they started with a really bad sketch, and the aerial photograph that didn't translate, because they're proposing to construct a small timber retaining wall behind the existing shed. And we did a site review with them and the GIS on the wetlands that are there, and from the neighbors, the wall that they're proposing is greater than 50 feet away from the edge of the vegetated wetland. And then we verified that in the plan. Doesn't require a stamp plan, so it's the beauty of our deals, but I would recommend a -3 for work with the buffer zone.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I just want to ask, how high is the wall?
It's about 18 inches high. It's good because I asked that on the phone today. I was coming back on the boat. I just wanted to double check when they called and said they weren't going to make it. And then they also have implied they'll be back at some point. They have a large stand of knotweed behind there, but they're going to file a notice to deal with the knotweed. Because that'll actually involve work in the resource area.
And it says there's somewhere where it's actually listed the height of the wall.
Oh, excuse me, I lied to you. You said 18 on the wall. On the other plan that they have, it's 2 feet high. So 24 inches. I think it's just kind of meant to set an end
Okay. So we have a motion to issue this as a -3. Do we have a second?
Sure.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Okay, certificates of compliance. Pearson, 7 Ames Ave.
I do. Which one is it, sorry?
Ames, 7 Ames.
Pearson?
Oh, Pearson 7 Ames. The certificate of compliance, this was for a septic system disposal upgrade. Kind of two pieces. The system as proposed, upon our inspection, the kind of review, and Board of Health checking, it appears the system was constructed as proposed. The only part I would recommend in issuing the certificate of compliance is that there's one ongoing condition that we typically carry forward for condition number 20, and that's just that the annual test and results for the Board of Health be provided to the commission. But other than that, I would say we could issue a certificate of compliance.
Okay, do I have that motion?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Okay, orders of conditions.
I apologize for not drafting more of them. We pass those out. We don't have that many for you tonight, but I'm paying attention to more. I normally read the bulk of them in the morning before the meeting.
Sometimes there's troubles.
No. Well, no, there really aren't ever troubles, but today was a special day.
It was a special day. We don't get that opportunity very often.
Number four for living turtles. It's like number 7 or 8 for dead turtles. So the first one I had was La Bombard.
Oh, Bombard, yeah.
So you can kind of see for La Bombard. Yep. This is for knotweed removal, so it's kind of a
Kind of our standard order.
kind of a standard order for knotweed removal. Yeah, that's how old it is. It was filed in December, so it's nice to be rid of it.
Okay.
Do we put in here that it has to be a licensed applicator, or is that within the specific treatment method?
Well, it's a matter of law anyhow.
Yeah, that has to be.
Yeah, that's the law. Well, I don't know, people can do work on their own property without being licensed, but,
Well, that's, if they're hiring someone to do it, that
If they're
person is
hiring.
required by law to be licensed.
mhm.
If they want to certainly go out and try to do this work on their own, good luck to them.
They're crazy.
No, you get shut down pretty fast.
Okay, I don't see anything.
It doesn't-
Everybody happy with this? Okay, do I have a motion to issue this order of conditions?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. The next one is the town of Nantucket at 48 Cliff Road.
So that's, it's gonna look a lot like the last one did. The only difference is because they're actually gonna be doing work in the wetland this time, is it required a waiver. And the waiver that they had requested was under a long-term net benefit. So, other than that, it looks pretty much like the last one. Okay, do you know when you want to start your knotweed removal?
When you back.
That's all.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he's gone.
Yeah,
For a picture.
he just passed through.
Yeah.
I just had a thought. I'm pretty sure the glyphosate is actually a 53% solution in the jug. And so, it's very simple to just dilute it 50/50, put in so much
So it would be down to like,
of the rodeo and then put in that same amount of water. But it would be more like 26%. 26.5, yeah. I mean, that's trivial, but I'm just looking at that and going, gee, what a pain that would be to get it down. But, if you really wanted to just get it to 25.
I would say that's where we would use the word substantial.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good to me too. Yeah.
And that's the beauty of licensed applicators, is they can figure those things out.
Well, I'm one of those things, and I guess I could figure it out, but I would smudge a little bit, pour a little more water in there, I guess.
That's probably what they'll do too.
Yeah, okay.
Especially because I can't really measure it.
Okay, well, looks like our standard order here. Do I have a motion to issue this as drafted?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Okay, we have one more. Barrett at 31 Dukes Road.
This is the one from last time. This was for the renovation of the existing dwelling and that second floor infill. But this is also the one that we had those concerns in regards to that sewer line that runs through the wetland resource area, kind of underneath it. You guys don't remember? So this is the one that, with the applicant here and through the commission, that the conditions we've added in, that prior to the start of the work, that a pressure test on that existing sewer line must be completed. And then they just need to perform that annually.
Okay.
So we know that that sewer line is not leaking into the vegetative plant. It'd be great to know.
Motion to issue, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, have a second.
Could I say something?
Yeah, sure.
What is that line constructed of? What material? That sewer line?
I believe it's
PVC.
PVC.
Schedule 40 PVC?
But it seems that
I would think that in a place like that, boy, they would make them use something better that really could withstand, especially since it's already failed once.
I know it's been replaced a couple times. It may be sleeved at this point. I just don't remember.
Do you want that to be part of the conditions?
I would think that one would either sleeved or upgraded somehow. But if it's failed a couple of times,
Quite sure it is sleeved.
I think they
Yeah,
said
it
that
is.
it was.
It's sleeved, but I just don't know I don't know the size.
Well, if it fails, I'll have to come back in and talk about work.
Worked on the original installation with Art, and we seem to recall it was PVC sleeved
Yeah.
with PV.
why did it fail then?
I don't know.
May have been some sort of blockage.
It's probably not Schedule 40, it's probably the SDR pipe, and perhaps the joints weren't sealed properly.
The thing is, the septic, I mean, I'm not trying to run down at the installers, it's very different from the engineers, but they're often very haphazard doing stuff. So if you had something to make it better, so it could be sloppily done and still work, I can't believe when I see installations of stuff how it doesn't work.
The problem is the inspection process for sewer connections.
I see stuff going through driveways that people are going to drive over that's like Schedule 40, and, how do you know the stresses that are...
Well, no, if it fails its test, it'll be back in front of us, and we can certainly order it changed.
Right.
But I think
Good, okay.
when it runs through the well, and I think trying to replace it without knowing right now is probably...
No, I'm not. I'm just wondering what it is. I'm trying to get educated, I know this house, and I've known it for a long time, and the neighbors who own most of the land it runs through. Just like, it is a real wetland. It's like an island surrounding
Yeah,
that.
it is. It's like a little upland. Okay. Do I have a motion to issue as drafted?
I believe Mr. Galeka already made that motion.
Oh, did he? Okay, sorry. Do I have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
All right. And again, I apologize for not doing more of them, but I don't get how it's going to go. I lost my
Well, I
writing day.
think, oops, what am I doing here? Most of them that we discussed tonight should be pretty straightforward, I think.
Just run through them. All right, so real quick, we had Steinberg at East Tristram Avenue. That's that road relocation project. They don't really have any conditions for that one.
No,
Anyone have any
that's-
special concerns? Positive order. More to Sandy Drive, that was the reconstruction in the flood zone primarily, and then the buffer zone, just inside the 100. Didn't really have any for that one either. Or didn't really hear any concerns. Or with, anyone have any special concerns on 141 Westchester? Also, let's just assume that's a positive order.
Mhm.
Put it together. And then the Goose Cove, that's the septic system upgrade.
And that one's good. Just the same thing about we get a copy of the report, so I guess we
Yep.
do.
All right, Nielsen, 21 Winoma Way. That's the one on the bank, with the
Oh,
removal
yeah.
of structure within the 25 on the bank. That's a bank because it touches a coastal dune field with the revegetation of a portion of the 25.
Yeah, that's pretty
Sounds
much
like
came
a
out
fair
of
trade.
wash, yeah.
All right, good one up. Anathan is the beach stairs and removal.
Yeah.
Kind of from the discussion, I thought we'd have some sort of, that the terraces be removed before the stairs. And
Right.
I think it may be nice to have some monitoring of that slope for just photos for a couple of years, just to see what kind of happens
To see
after
what
it's
happens there,
removed.
yeah. I mean, if it starts falling like crazy, they'll probably be back before us.
Oh, yeah.
But it would be good to just keep track.
All right. 7 doors on Lincoln Ave. It's the foundation replacement with the coastal bank.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of close there, but it's not going very deep.
And the house is there. And then the last one's just that pool. That's most of outside of 100.
Yeah, that
Outside
one
of
seemed
standard
fine,
pool
yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
for no discharge of the pool into the to the resource area or buffer zone. All right. Good run.
Yeah, it was an easy meeting tonight. You got lucky, Jen.
Weird.
Yeah,
You can still knock it up, don't you? Ray?
Oh, okay, good.
yeah, I could. We still got something coming up here.
All right.
Got all the players out there in the audience still waiting around. So.
All right, whenever you're ready, Mr. Chairman, move on.
Okay.
Hang out there.
Okay, enforcement actions.
All right. I guess I'll drive the bus a little bit on this one. I drafted up a letter that we talked about kind of before. This is in relation to the Hummock Pond Road bike path wetland. I know Kara is here for this tonight too, for a little bit of an update for what's there. I know we've been talking a little bit for a while on how it's difficult to, I don't want to say hold feet to the fire. I don't know, there's address on there. Hold feet to the fire a little bit. We don't really have finding as an option for what we have. So kind of a plan that I came up with, and I'm sure Kara will speak to some degree, was kind of starting to set some timelines for the completion of the delineation and the plan work to go through that. I think she's here to discuss it too. And then I think the only real choice that we have for feet to the fire on this one is to start talking about revocation of the actual permit. And then that would essentially force them to have to do it or vacate the permit for the bike path. We really don't have any other recourse other than that. I think that's a pretty creative solution. But you want to throw an update in order?
Well, as you know, when this was started quite a while ago, Muhammad was still here, and when he left, I kind of ended up having it thrust upon me, and without someone to help out, it was very difficult to keep up with it. I do have a town engineer now, Silvio Janelle, and he has met with Brian out there, and we'll be discussing with him tomorrow the identification of the wetlands to ensure that the replication area that is being created is sufficiently sized and appropriately located. As you probably remember, we had Victor Paving go back in, it must be about a year ago now, to remove some of the siltation that had happened during the construction period, and a significant amount of silt was removed. We had the surveyors survey the excavated area, and there was a concern that the area set aside for replication was not sufficient because of an intrusion into the existing wetlands area. So what we'll be doing is having Brian identify the wetlands area, have it resurveyed so that we can determine whether we meet the replication requirements. If not, we will hire our own excavator to remove appropriately located fill so that we have the correct amount of wetlands vegetation. We have not seeded it yet in anticipation of getting this work done. If you look at it now, the wetlands plants are kind of migrating back.
It's actually looking pretty good.
Yeah, into the excavated areas, but it really does need some more growth. And what we need to verify is that the replication area is sufficiently sized.
So what this letter is hopefully doing is the dates that I proposed in there is that essentially that plan showing those areas be back in front of the commission on July the 23rd. So it's not next meeting, but it's the following meeting after that. And again, if we don't meet those deadlines, we'll start down the other path. You know, it involves a hearing and those things, but that's really the only recourse we have. So I may have a typo, but if that's the case, we'll make any revisions to this that we feel necessary, and then I'll track you down, Ernie, and we'll get you as the acting chairman to sign it, and we'll send it out. But we need to be sure this gets moving forward. Mm-hmm. Then obviously this will get copied to like town manager and those things too, just so everyone knows what's going on. But I think the 23rd is a pretty fair deadline to get that portion done. Obviously, we want to kind of keep it moving now that it's
keep it moving so we can be sure we have the grades and everything right, and so then in the fall planting season we can get the seeding done, and I think getting it right is much more
correct.
Is the main thing here. And
so I think when the plan work comes in and that requirement's been satisfied, then we'll set up the next steps with dates that go with it, with kind of the carrot being the permit staying a valid permit and not being revoked by the commission for the path itself. So
I would hate to do that. I ride on that path.
yeah, so that's kind of what we got. So we'll just take it these two steps. When those two are met, we'll sign off on those. We'll issue out the next steps, and then instead of doing a laundry list of 10 or 12 things, we'll do them kind of two at a time, and we'll meet those and just grind it out till it's done. Hopefully very soon.
I like it.
Okay.
So
I did find a couple typos, so don't sign this one.
do we need a motion to submit this letter to?
If you guys made a motion to issue the letter as part of that enforcement action, and then voted in the affirmative, I'll make the corrections and I'll find you tomorrow, Ernie.
Okay. Do I have that motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
All right, other enforcements real quick?
I just wanted to, before we move on, Emily, since you guys hold the CR on that property, do you have any comments?
I haven't actually seen the letter and looked at the dates, but I'm certainly supportive of the concept of it and appreciate you guys issuing it.
If it helps, the final date for all of the plan work to be complete is the 23rd of July. So that's for our next meeting, not our next meeting, but 2 meetings. There's a meeting on the 9th and then the following one.
Yeah, we just really want to see the work completed as soon as possible. So.
I think if we try it in smaller pieces, it gets a little easier to keep moving forward. Other ones moving forward, been trying to get in touch with people on Wall Street again about their grading issue. Not much available. Trying to set up a time to go out with Sergeant Robinson to go say hello to them. But we're happy to go. Both of us have had trouble linking up on common times because we've been running around with birds and all kinds of other fun stuff. Other enforcement actions that I know we've discussed before, and we've had questions about a number of times, primarily the Wisconsin Bluff enforcement action. We clearly have one open enforcement action that's still there that involved the placement of the sand and then also the pipe. And those, and what else was in there? The work below the water line, which obviously is no longer going on because there's no work going on that site. But it would probably nice at some point to at least take some sort of either closeout action on that enforcement, whether it's ordering the removal of the pipe or leaving it as is for right now. The other part to that enforcement, and this is a different enforcement, not to muddy the waters, is we've now issued denial on the project as it sits on the ground. And finally, after talking to town council and finally getting a chance to talk to the folks at DEP today, and then town council this afternoon, their recommendation to us was because the permit is under appeal, that structure is lawfully there under the enforcement action, because that permit doesn't become valid until the appeal is rectified or completes its appeal. So it sits under its emergency certification until that permit appeal has run its course. We don't forfeit our ability to deal out an enforcement action at any point if something really seems to be happening, but right now that project that's there, I know that's not always the news everyone likes to hear, but that's the information I got from town council and I got from DEP, is that the structure there, while under a permit that's been denied, it's not a permit that's active because it's been appealed both the Superior Court and then for superseding an order of conditions to the DEP. So until that permit and that denial becomes an active permit, that structure is sitting there under the emergency certification. Those appeals run their course and the appeal is upheld for the denial. That would be the appropriate time to take out whatever action the commission seems fit as far as an enforcement of doing those things. That's my recommendation. Certainly you guys can do as the commission so chooses.
Town council express any confidence factor in the appeal being?
Town council expressed to me that he had not finished reading the novels that were sent for both the local appeal and the state appeal at this point, because I know I haven't either. I mean, the state appeal is about 300 pages long, and the local one is a little bit shorter, but it's pretty close. So,
is town council going to deal with it? Or are they
yep, I will update. So we submitted, like we normally do, our request for legal services to deal with the appeals. Those requests have been approved, so town council is authorized to defend the commission through the appeal process.
Choose someone to defend it on his behalf?
Yes, but town council will be, the commission will be receiving defense of the appeal, and that has been approved at this point. So there's nothing that's been signed off by town administration, and they have begun their work as they normally do in defense of the appeal. So that's kind of where we're at.
And probably the pipe and other enforcement, I mean...
That's a little different, because that's, the pipe itself, as an example, is work that was not done in accordance with the emergency certification or hasn't received a positive permit. So that specific piece is still sitting in violation of both the state and local acts, and isn't included in, I mean, it was included in the proposal under the order that's been denied, but that work isn't covered by the emergency. So that would be an example.
Right, that's something that-
If you guys chose to take action to have the pipe removed, that would, I would still say that's still within your purview to do.
Just wondering how disruptive, I mean, it's behind the bank, isn't it?
A portion of it is yes.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, the other thing is, it's not just the pipe, it's the whole trench that was dug there. Whatever that was, only, what, 40 feet long, right?
Yes. I would say if you're going to order the pipe removed, you would also order the curtain drain system to be restored to its original condition as well.
Yeah, well, what was its original condition, since it was flattened there before they then put it in?
Or I'd say as close to
As
natural
close as
condition as
possible.
possible.
Pull it out.
But that's kind of where we sit, where you can certainly leave it open and do as you so choose. You can take whatever action you guys feel.
I think we
You
should
feel
wait
is
for
appropriate.
full board.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The old stable door argument.
I will also say, just to clarify too, and it's something I asked today to town council, is an enforcement action doesn't function like a regular notice of intent or request for determination. So obviously this is Jen's last meeting that's here, so if there's a new commissioner that's in place, he's able to take, or she is able to take action on that enforcement order because it's not part of a public hearing. It's essentially an open permit. So enforcement's function a little bit differently. So it's not like if everyone comes back and someone replaces Jen, that person will be excluded from dealing with that enforcement action. It's not the case. They would still be able to fully participate. To make that
So
clear.
what's your feeling, Jim?
It'll give me a sense of closure
No, I
to
could-
close out on that
I
enforcement
could
order.
vote on, I could.
Yes, you're allowed to act in your capacity as a commissioner to take action as part of an enforcement action.
I kind of think it's unfortunate we've had it open that long. Now that we've finally ruled on the permit, it would be nice to close out that enforcement order as well. You guys would rather wait for the full board, I understand.
Philosophically, I generally don't care for this idea of deferring things for a full board. I mean, I think you make your commitment to participate here, you're here, you're not here for whatever reason, and business goes on. I think that I don't see any reason to postpone acting.
Well, I mean, I don't think this is a critical an emergency situation like that it necessarily needs to be dealt with immediately, and it is a charged issue, and in that case, I think it doesn't hurt to have a full board and let everybody participate. So what do you think, Dan?
Again, I'm not sure. I mean, I would think that if there were going to be a continued enforcement action, that, there should be some notice of it, I would think, or, I don't know. Yeah, never mind. Don't ask me anything.
Well, if you'd like, we can certainly add it to an actual formal agenda item for the next meeting.
If you want to do something about it, I'd say go ahead. I don't think there's any point in doing anything at all about it until we sort of see how this is all going to play out and what's going to happen. Because I don't see any real harm being done by any of these things. And I gather there's probably different viewpoints at the table, and that makes the world go around and so forth. So, but I don't like the idea of putting it off. If we're going to do it, do it right now.
Well, so what do people think about it then?
Well, in general, I think that it shouldn't have been put in and ought to get taken out, but in terms of the whole big deal, it's not very much, it's pretty small.
I tend to feel that way too. And everybody knows what took place, and we've been the manic helpers. So, and this that it's an additional expense to the town. Is SBPF paying for it to be removed? Or?
Are you referring to the pipe?
Yeah.
I would imagine that the town SBPF would work out who was paying for its removal amongst themselves. And that's a, I would say that's not a concern for who's paying for its removal. If it's
Strike that from the record. I don't have much appetite for pursuing it at this point, considering everything else that's going on.
Just kind of deal with it all at once.
Yeah, I think so.
I do apologize for the late notice, but I literally spoke to DEP and Town Council between 2 and 3:30, so was happy to finally at least get to speak to both of them.
I mean, it just seems to me that it's not really town council's purview to be defending this. It's a really specialized case. That makes it, I worry that we're not, perhaps I shouldn't articulate this.
I don't think it's invalid to think you want the best defense possible for your decision.
Yeah,
And
I do.
I don't think that's an invalid concern, and
But I'm sure town council is thinking along the same lines.
I'm sure they will find someone that can appropriately defend
Right.
whatever decision was made.
So,
And I'll certainly keep everyone posted on where we are in the process and how things are going. Like I said, we're all still reading through the novels that were sent, so.
Boy, that sounds like a real tome. Jeez.
Where do we get to the state? The appeal to the state? Is it posted?
It is. It's on the Board of Selectmen's website. You can read both appeals. Are
Okay,
posted.
I've read the other one somehow. Is it on Facebook or something? I can't remember.
Yep. Or if you certainly need a copy, I can certainly.
Yeah, you want to be aware if you're reading on Facebook that sometimes you're reading excerpts or certain edited versions or that sort of
I
thing.
don't know. I don't think they left much out.
If you like, I can.
It was too boring to be excerpts.
Maybe if you want, I can send you the full copies of all the appeals. I can send them to everyone if everyone wants to see it.
I don't mind having it electronically. I can get it for something.
If you need bedtime reading.
Yeah.
It's weird to read through like the last 18 months of your life though. For years. You remember a lot of things that went on, a lot of discussions that were had.
Okay.
get on my notes to verify.
Probably a good idea.
Okay, let's go to other business. Do we have minutes to approve?
No.
Okay.
We're all pretty good.
Reports. CPC.
I missed the last meeting, but Bobby DaCosta has stepped off as the representative for the selectwomen, and Toby Glidden has stepped on. And there's been there have been allocations, a long list, which I didn't bring in, but I can provide it if we would.
Okay. Andy's not here, so we don't have NPDC. Sarah's not here, so we don't have Mosquito Control Committee. Anything else? Okay.
Okay, do we adjourn the meeting?
No commissioners' comments.
Well, I
Still got
have a
it.
comment.
Okay.
I hope everybody in the room likes cake, because we have a cake from Petticoat Road for Jen, if she chooses to share it with us.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
You can thank your husband for that suggestion. Thought we should ask.
We do have something else for you too.
Okay. Any other commissioners' comments? Jeff, I had a question.
Yes, sir.
I noticed that very few of our notices are coming in with a review with our consultants.
Yes, that will change very shortly. We had to it was kind of a contracting snafu, so we've had to re-put that contract out to bid.
Oh, okay.
So,
Contract is currently out to bid?
yes, or at least I believe it has been to rectify that situation. But it was an accounting and contractual issue. So,
Anything else from the commission? Okay, Jeff, do you have anything else?
Good luck to you and Ian tonight. It'd be great to have you guys back. Jen,
I do have one other-
we'll miss you greatly. I'll find a new partner in crime to sit next to me.
I hope you do.
I doubt the person will be as great as you.
Hard to imagine, isn't it? You were
Other
just
than that-
an excellent commissioner.
Good stuff.
Everyone have a great 4th of July. She set me up so I can.
No.
All right, we'll take a motion to adjourn though, so I can
Mr.
set the
Chairman, I
tape
do
for
have
Okay,
actually
we
one
have a
other.
motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I have one
Did you get
other.
it?
Okay, Mike.
I was sort of waving him and saying anything else. That's all right. Any other, which is, if the consultant's contract is out to bid, I think it would be appropriate that we,
One second. One more comment.
that we all familiarize ourselves with the situation. What is the property? Is it number 11 North Liberty, Jeff, that I'm thinking of? With the sump pump and the drainage and the onto
Yes.
the land bank property, and not to necessarily get into it all
I think
tonight.
maybe 15. Maybe number 15 North Liberty Street.
Where there was a sump pump draining over onto the, there's kind of a, there's a, what, an enforcement or a filing issue coming down the line, and from what I know about it, it could very well have an impact on qualifications of the consultant the commission hires, and I think that should get, I don't think that a hiring decision should be made until we have all the information about that property and about that, whatever's taken place there. And I guess that's as far as I can go in a public meeting setting, but I think it's important that we all fully understand that before we enter into a new contract. And so I don't know what the sequencing and the timetable is, and maybe our administrator can.
Yeah, I'll provide that for you guys. I'm not sure when that bid ends or what that is, but you can certainly be a part of that process in your consultants. So.
And who makes the choice of who we hire? Is it the commission or is it the BOS?
You guys will definitely be involved. Yeah, you guys kind of have the final say on how that works.
So we'll be back before us, before a decision is made?
Yes.
Yeah. That's great. That's all I'm really looking for. Because
Okay.
things will sequence and we'll know what we know when we know it.
Okay, now do I have a motion to close the meeting? Second. All in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that carries unanimously.
And there is a lovely cake here. So.
Yes. So,
Let's share.
you guys stick around.
Everyone has a pig. I just got to stop the microphones and cameras.
All right. I'm
Yeah,
not the best
thanks.
cake cutter. I don't know if someone's good at this kind of thing.
I'm sure you will find a volunteer somewhere.